with that, I strongly invite you to explore the booth in the expo area, since they have a lot of surprises and prizes that you can win ready for you. And with that, let's get day 2 started. Please all enjoy. Fantastic. And with that, we're going right to our first conversation. And we're particularly honored to have Sacha Dragic joining us today. He is a fantastic founder and like somebody that I even enjoyed like the pre-conversation a lot with. So he has achieved a tremendous level of success, but has so far remained like under the radar in Romania. So I bet a lot of you aren't that familiar with. But I'm particularly honored, Sasha, that you make the time. I know it's a really busy time for you, and you're still like honoring us here with your presence at Texavania. I see that you're dialing in from a hotel room, I believe, in France. This is so. Thank you so much, Sasha, for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Philip, and it's an honor for me to be here today.
So, Sasha, I want to kickstart this discussion in like the early days. For those of you who don't know Sasha, he is running a fantastic Romanian unicorn. He's running Superbet, which he founded, I believe, in 2012. Is that right? Or even earlier than that?
A little bit earlier, 2008, actually.
In 2008. And it is now a massive player that he has transformed to a technology powerhouse in the betting industry with a goal to be one of the biggest betting companies globally, and with a tremendous growth that I've like rarely seen in any startup at that scale. I'm not sure if it's like correct to classify it as a startup. But before we go into the fantastic success that you've achieved today, I really want to start at the early days and like sharing with some wannabe founders or want to be founders in the audience, like what was it in the early days? What made you tick and what made you start Superbet in 2008 when you were getting going?
I think it were different times. I think that the startup founders today have way more instruments to get the things right from the beginning than we had back then. And I think that one of the also disadvantage we had with Superbet was that we are in an industry which at that time was even less than today, not very appealing, neither for kind of VC investors, neither to a kind of financial investors. Also very difficult to get any kind of financing from the banks. And it was really challenging to get the money you need. And probably the first 12 to 18, 24 months, it was only one big and strategical and tactical plan, and it was survival. So the things was to find a way how you can scale the business to a certain level where you felt that it will be self-sustaining and find enough money to come to that level, which was not really obvious in all of this early period. So it was, and I'm sure that most of the entrepreneurs have always in the beginning that very, very difficult task, finding just enough money to make it work. And especially if you need to pivot a few times because you just feel that you're not on the best way, it just make more and more difficult to find fresh money to do it. And that's basically, if I remember from the time I founded Superbet in 2008, late 2008, till probably the moment when we break even, which was probably late 2011, early 2012, I have spent between 50 and 80% of my time looking for money.
What I found really great when we had our conversation is how humble you were about the beginning days. Right? Like it didn't sound like in the beginning you had this like grand master plan, because nowadays for somebody at your level of success, like for entrepreneurs who look at that, it always looks like, hey, this is like always this grand master plan. But what I really enjoyed is, like we were saying, when you founded the company, your dream was a 20 million euro exit. Is that, do I remember that correctly?
Yeah, because I used to be a serial entrepreneur. but really not a very successful serial entrepreneur, because all of my previous ventures before Superbet, almost all of them went bust. So it was kind of very expensive school and very painful school. And when I founded Superbet, I was like already 42 years old. So not really like most of the young entrepreneurs. I had a quite good experience of life, but still, I mean, after so many starting from scratch and then really getting past, you are thinking, okay, what should be, the best? And so if you make something like 20 million euro in value, it looks like the money you need for all of your life, So if you succeed to do this, at the time also I had already 4 kids, it will just give a kind of stability to the family, and the things which you feel are important. But luckily, I mean, I never really stuck to that plan. So as the company was growing, I was just moving the amount, higher and higher. So they always looked unachievable, So that was the kind of the name of the game.
Yeah. I think it's a tremendous inspiration, right? Like, so then when you found a company at like 42, have kids and family, right? Like, I think then you were like taking a great personal risk, which shows that basically anybody with a level of commitment and belief can make that happen. So I think it's a great inspiration for the audience. And I think the other thing that I really enjoyed is like the ambition, how you continuously move the goalpost to expand your horizon, right? Like starting at 20 million and then going to like several billion valuation where you're now. So you're always like see something that's next. And I think the other thing that was really interesting is you said like you were already in the industry, and then you said like that one of your other goals was to become bigger than the company that you left, so that you can like demonstrate like your skills. So I think that was also something that I really enjoyed hearing as an ambition.
Yeah, I think that it's probably you have something of this. So for people who had a kind of ventures in their previous life which went sour for different reasons, they always have something to prove to themselves and to the world. And if you know how to manage that, because sometimes it can be also destructive, but if you know how to manage something like this, then it's a good motivation when you wake up every morning. Okay, how far I'm on that journey? How much more do I need to build in order to come to that level? Yeah. So
I think what you mentioned is also a super important lesson, right? Like you need to enjoy the journey. I mean, you've been into this journey. I mean, you said yourself, you're like an entrepreneur of your life, but like even in Superbet, you've been now more than 10 years. So I'm sure you just can't sustain 10 plus years of your life just waiting for a lot of money, but you need to like really enjoy the journey.
No, of course. I mean, the money is probably just very, very important in the early stage when you don't get it, So when you feel that if you would have just enough money, it will change everything in the life of the company, because it's a stress, when you have employees and every month you need to struggle to find the money to pay the salary at time. Then you need the money to pay the phone bills and to pay the leasings of the cars. Otherwise, you'll not be able to develop anymore because the leasing company will just take you out the cars. So it's a real stress. And then you just have the feeling in the beginning that money can solve most of your problem, because as most of entrepreneurs surely know it in the early life of the company. So especially before you get either some important funding, either you make profits, it's very difficult. And so you always feel that having enough money will solve almost all of your problems. And then, of course, in the later stage, when the company become profitable enough, the money just lose slowly importance. I mean, okay, of course, it's important you have it there because it gives you a possibility to make investments, to do other things, but it's not anymore at all the game. So the game, it's really, at least in my case, the game, I think I didn't care so much about the valuation of the company or whatever for the last few years. It was more looking how can we build something good and build something which is really very, very different from anyone else, at least in our Central and Eastern European geography.
I mean, how many years in the early days did it take you until you knew you really had something, right? Like you said, like in the beginning, you like needed to pay rent, you put like a lot of money in opening new shops. How long after starting did it take you to say, like, yes, I know that I have something?
It took me probably really to be in that position where, okay, I'm very, very comfortable that we have something good and something valuable, I think around 5 years. So we started late 2008. And I think that really when we felt, okay, now we are enough profitable that we can also invest, that we can give some first small dividends, etc., improve the quality of life of the shareholders, somewhere in 2013. So I just think that it probably take 5 years, at least in my case, it took 5 years to come that you really feel that you have something valuable in your hand.
So you said, if I got this correctly, your first company started when you were 22. And then you said like you were above 40 when you started Superbet. So you had like almost 20 years school of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So what is the lesson that you would share with the audience you learned from your first 20 years of entrepreneurship?
Look, I think there are many lessons, but the two most important, which I think when I, and I was not aware of them at that time. I just maybe now when I retrospectively look back on time, I think that the two most important lessons, one is to be authentic and to really focus your energy on doing better the things in which you are good. And second, to find a right team of people who can cover the part of the business where we are weak. I think plenty of people spend a lot of energy trying to learn some skills where they're weak. In my case, it never worked. I really tried badly to become better manager, to become better operational guy. It never worked for me. I mean, even when I was on my best, I was probably in the worst 10% ever, which I ever met. I would have fired myself probably many times for this. And really, the thing started to change within Superbet when I succeeded to focus on what I feel are my strong parts and finding people to work with me who are really much, much better than me in some part, or which are also very important for the business, like finance, like operations, like marketing. And that's where we started really making a difference.
Yeah, this is such a difficult and humble insight for people to have. Like it's very similar. Yesterday we had the Fitbit founder. He said also like knowing yourself, and a talk where they said this is one of the most important, still most difficult skills. So kudos for really having this level of self-awareness. And and I mean it's like demonstrated a fantastic success coming out of that. So the other thing then, as you go on your journey, that I was really impressed with is you've also never stopped learning, and you've like your Superbet now is, from what I understand, a very different company than in the early days. Right, like in the early days, it was like betting shops and slot machines, and nowadays you're becoming really a technology company. So the what you said, like kind of the motto, what your goal is right now is like merging McDonald's with Netflix, right? Like that really stuck with me as a great combination of the strength, the physical world and the digital world. But I want to like ask you, like, how was this like for you? Because Superbet was already growing a lot, very profitable, very successful company. What made you go into this like transition to become a digital powerhouse from like a betting and in the physical world, like a powerhouse? What like gave this like thought and idea to you that you pursued?
It was an easy decision because I felt that my strength is in the physical world. I really never felt as a tech person. Even I'm very curious about learning new things, and I was always reading a lot about management and reading a lot about successful companies and about successful business people. So spending a lot of time reading biographies of successful business people and so on. I was always really looking on the people from the physical world. I didn't spend many time looking on the magazine like Forbes or Harvard Business Review. Whenever it was the tech pages, I was just skipping them, like I don't need this. I'm looking the business cases and not the tech part of it. So when, as I told you before, I really felt that I have something valuable in 2013, and then 2014-15 really increased. Even we become very dominant in the physical world in Romania, like a dominant number one retailer in sports betting. And then in 2015, the legislation changes, and the digital online gaming, which before was forbidden in Romania, become legal. And suddenly, national online world, and that was probably the single moment in the Superbet history where I was very seriously thinking about selling the company, because I just felt that I would not be able to lead the company to that transformation toward technology. And luckily for me, I did not succeed to find a right partner. And so we had to make those investments and to improve our technology. And when we went live in 2016, we were really late. We were one of the last company to get live in online in Romania. All of our competitors get live in September 2015. And since I was very much looking how to sell Superbet, and with my management team, we were late. We launched the company only in February 2016. And the success was way, way, way higher. I mean, it was tens of times higher than we were expecting in our most optimistic scenarios. And of course, because of this, we underinvested, and the platform we had in the beginning was really not, we were down for hours almost every weekend. And all of our customers were sending us all kinds of messages on Facebook. I remember, you are so stupid, you are retarded, you don't know nothing about this. It was so frustrating, but then when the site was live again, within seconds or minutes, it was like tens of thousands of people again on the site. So that was the moment when I understood that probably we're doing something right, because even for me, I was not able to understand why, when you have so many international companies with way better platform than us, way more stable platform, why the customers are just coming back to our platform. And that was also the moment when I understood that if we'll put the right amount of investments in technology, we probably can compete not only in Romania, but also in some other markets with those. So that's how sometimes in 2016, I think that there were those 6 months in 2016 from the early beginning of February when we launched till October, November, when I had a discussion with all the other shareholders and we decided really to go very aggressively in tech investments. At the time, I shocked all of them, telling them, look, we need to invest 50 million euros in technology, which was something, really a shocking amount of money, but we ended up investing more than 100 million from 2016 till today.
How do you keep this, what some people call like the beginner's mind, being so open-minded? Because normally when you're at the top of an already successful company, oftentimes you have a lot of yes man around you that say, oh, Sasha, you're a genius, you're like perfect. How did you manage to not get full of your success?
Look, I think there are two reasons. One reason is that really for me, it's very difficult to work with yes men. I mean, I just don't feel don't get the real feedback. And luckily for me, in Superbet, in the top 20 people in Superbet, you'll probably have 17 who will tell me that I'm stupid and not that I'm very intelligent. So we have a very strong personalities, and I'm really proud about the Superbet team. I mean, I stepped back in 2019 from the CEO role. We have Johnny, a great CEO, way better than me, and also Johnny bring in some very strong individuals, but also from before Johnny, some very strong individuals from my previous teams, and also some very strong entrepreneurs from the company we acquired. They're all in that Superbet ecosystem, and I think that we're one of the companies where you have a really very strong debate, and where people doesn't have any problem to tell you that you're totally wrong, and it's I even cannot tell the word they use, for your ideas. So it's not something where, in order to get people in Superbet convinced that something is good, it takes really a lot of effort, and you must be sure that you are right with the things you're telling them.
Yeah, I think that segues very well into another discussion which we have is like how your view on culture shifted over time, right? Like what you shared is like in the beginning it was a culture of survival, and now you're spending a significant amount of your time like fostering company culture in a very deliberate way. So would love to like hear you share a little bit on that angle.
Yeah, I mean, we were through different phases. In the beginning, it was mostly Central European because we were all Romanian, Serbs, and Croats in the company. And then in the later stage, we get way more people coming from Western Europe within the company. So we had that geographical diversity. But then also we had from different backgrounds. So we had the people which grew up in Superbet professionally and which were really very fanatical about Superbet. So there are people who are like working 16, 18 hours a day for Superbet. They would kill someone if you will tell that Superbet is not the best company in the world. Very, very fanatical. And then you had also the entrepreneurs who came from different, we acquired their company, also very proud of their heritage. And then also we have the very, very strong management team, which Johnny brought from different, very professional organization. And just making all of these people work together was a challenge, And even today, I think that Johnny and me, we spend most of our time together about this. And some of our colleagues coming from the entrepreneurial work had this, that if you're big, it sucks, it becomes political, So when I was listening to Reed Hastings' cultural deck things, I really recognized this. And we try also to prove that being bigger doesn't suck, that being bigger, you have more smart people discussing, debating, and trying to find the right what should be the right culture for Superbet in 2025. How should we do? And we don't have the answer, and it's probably it will never end. It will never be a final decision. That's how it worked. And now for 10 years, I think that whatever we do, if we'll acquire someone somewhere, those the culture of that organization will impact our organization, and then we'll need always to look what are the best practices from and to try to reform the existing things. So yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah, I mean, building a continuously learning organization. How Netflix is a great example. How they transitioned from a physical DVD mailing business to an online business, and I do think you've managed something very comparable that very, very few companies in the world manage this transition. Right, like starting one thing and being successful is already very hard. Starting one thing and transition into something else is like a very rare feat. Few entrepreneurs achieve. So maybe before we go into like some of the advices, I'd love for you to share, as much as you're comfortable, some of the scale that Superbet has achieved right now. And again, like please, whatever you're comfortable to disclose, but I think it's important for the audience to get like kind of a sense of the scale as Superbet as an organization is right now.
Sure. So from our early beginning, we really had we always had a very high growth bet. So and it was easy in the beginning because we started from very, very low numbers, but we are still on that growth bet. And what is important, it's because of that specificity of Superbet being in the betting gaming space, as I told in the beginning, very, very difficult to find money for that industry. Very difficult. So not sexy for VCs, not sexy for classical financiers. So we had always to take a right balance between being profitable and growing. We're not able to lose money and grow like some of the tech companies can do in order to get. So we were always, it was always for us necessary to find the right balance between our growth and this. And I think we really have it. And it's not really my merit. It's way more the merit of Johnny and the new management team. But I can give some numbers. Let's say that we finished as a group the 2020, which was really a difficult year because of the COVID, because most of our shops went closed in Romania for a longer period of time, few months. And still, we succeeded to beat by far our 2020 budget, pre-COVID budget. And we finished the 2020, I think, with a little bit more than 300 million euros in revenue and around 80 million euro in EBITDA, which was quite attractive because it was like 40% plus growth compared to the 2019 numbers. But then in 2021, which was for sure the best year in the history of the company, of course, it's still not finished, but already today we know for sure that we'll grow triple digit compared to 2020. So our revenue will be way north of 600 million this year, and our profit will be way north of 160 million euro this year. So we'll more than double the 2020 numbers.
Yeah, I mean, this is like almost unheard of to grow at that scale at like hundreds of millions of revenue and growing profitable. Is like when I heard this, I was like, oh my God, this is like an amazing success story right out of Romania that the world needs to hear, and obviously has led you to like a multi-billion euro valuation as well. So congratulations to those achievements. And with that, right, like what I'd really like to see is also kind of what is like the advices that you give to young entrepreneurs, right? Like what would you say for somebody that's like in the same position as you were like earlier, considering to start, right? Like what are the pros and the cons that you would see?
Look, I think that the first things which anyone who wants to go on the entrepreneurial route should ask himself is he really ready to do all the necessary sacrifice to succeed? Because it's never easy. I mean, it's always way more difficult than you think in the beginning. And not everyone is built to be an entrepreneur. And I think it's basically you need to find what is the right balance between your risk-taking appetite and your ambition. And only if you have a really very high level of risk appetite and with a very high ambition, I think that then probably going on the entrepreneurial way, it's the best way to do. Otherwise, it's maybe because you have many other things. You can be a co-founder, you can do consultants, you can do a lot of other things. So I think that the first thing is that you really should ask yourself, and then you should ask yourself, do you have an idea? Do you have a business idea which you feel will bring something new to the customer? So whatever, is it a new service or is it the improvement of existing service? So what will be because if you don't have customers to what you are building, then of course the success will not be there. So I mean, you need to think what you will be there. What will be your special things which will get you to the success, and then of course you'll be very open-minded. And that's something which I don't know. Probably I made many times this mistake in my first 20 years, so it was easier in the Superbet years to get there, because you need to find a way when you need to be perseverant. So when you feel that even if you're failing, you need to keep that way. But there are also some times where you just need to pivot because it doesn't make sense anymore to go there and to pivot quickly be there. And that's something which is very difficult. You don't know, is it the kind that you are blocked somewhere on the road where if you will be more perseverant, you will get the breakthrough. If you try 1, 2, 5 more times, you will get the breakthrough. Or it's somewhere where it's just a big rock and it's just a waste of energy, and it's just better that you pivot a little bit left or right, And those are the things which are very difficult. And what I think it's still in Romania and in Eastern Europe more difficult than, let's say, in Western Europe or in the US, especially, where you have so many venture capital funds where it become almost an industry. It's very easy to make a startup, to get your first financing, and then someone else will buy you later. I think that, and I believe that the people in Eastern Europe are more genuine, not because the other are not genuine enough, but just because the other are more spoiled. The access to capital make you to be less resilient. And since in Eastern Europe, the access to capital, it's more difficult, you need to be more resilient, otherwise you'll not survive. And so that's why you have success story like that, say UiPath or someone else, because you are obliged to be very, very big fighter before you get your first financing, and then your second financing, and your third financing. Probably if those guys were somewhere in San Francisco or in New York, they would get that financing long time ago,
Yeah, I mean, you said yourself, like when you started, the name of the game was like being cash flow positive, and now it's more like getting investor money. And the other thing that like from our prep talk, right, like you said, while it's more difficult than people imagine, you said also the reward is way higher than people imagine.
Yeah, of course, if you succeed. But, I always told this when I speak also with my kids, which are now in the age of starting their first entrepreneurial experiments, I always told to them that being an entrepreneur, it's really like the gazelles which should cross the river full of crocodile. So the probability of getting to the other side, it's probably 5%, But if you're on the other side, then you can really get that high level of happiness or
It sounds like you've been eaten a few times by the crocodiles, but that didn't like detract you from starting again and again. So thank God it's like a computer game where you have multiple lives and not only one to try.
Yeah, as long as you have the money to pay the electricity, so the computer doesn't go shut down totally.
Well, we're glad that there was always money for electricity bills on your side, so that you can tell us all these amazing battle stories by now. So towards the end, I would also love to since you've been so great at like anticipating what's happening in the next few years, I'd love to have your view on what do you think people should pay close attention to in the next like 5 to 10 years? Where do you think big opportunities will emerge?
I don't believe that I'm the right person to answer this, because I'm sure that there are many, many people way more qualified than me for this. But what I can tell from someone who is also a customer of different other services is that it's clear that during the pandemic and even before, the way how people spend their money and their time, it's switching and changing. Me personally, and again, I'm not at all, even today, I'm not at all a kind of tech person, but I don't remember when I spent last time watching TV. So you switch to watching more Netflix or other HBO or whatever on demand when you have the free time. So I just think that the customer demand will be totally different, and I also believe that there are no industry in the world which will not be heavily impacted by technology. It doesn't matter if there are hotels, if there are airplanes, if there are restaurants, if there everything will be, you will need to have the deliveries, you will need to have everything on the apps. So all things will be basically change because of the technology. And then, of course, there are a lot of speculation about crypto and about tokens and about everything else. So I think that we'll have like 10 to 20 very, very exciting years where you will have to fight how to grow, but in the same time, how to not get disrupted by someone new coming, So it will be something where interesting to follow.
What do you wish for your kids? It sounds like your kids are getting into an age that they will soon maybe like follow path of an entrepreneur or something else. What is like the things that you wish into this world for like your kids to follow on and have the opportunities?
Look, I think the most important is that they follow what they feel they can add the most value for the society. So not all of my kids are entrepreneurial. As I told you, I have 4 kids. Some of them are entrepreneurial. Some of them have different interests, more in art or more in charity world, So I just think that each of them should think how they can make a best impact, and that's something which is the most important. I didn't have that choice because I come from blue collar family. So I was really the first person in my family ever to go into entrepreneurial water. And if I wouldn't have succeeded, probably my kids wouldn't have that possibility of having a choice. But I think that now they just should really focus on what are the things they can give back to society in the most efficient way.
That is fantastic advice to young people, and I admired like how humble you stayed after all of this successes. So I think that's a great note to close this conversation on. And I hope once travel allows, you will join us in one of the next editions in person. It's wonderful to have you here and learn from your experiences. So thank you so much for making an exception and like joining this event and being a bit more public about your successes. So thank you so much, Sasha, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Philip. Thank you.